A Passion for Mushrooms by Chrononautical. Chapter 10. An Inauspicious Introduction.
It was risky for her to barge so much of their equipment up the Seldwyn, but I cannot fault her for her eagerness,
Thorn said, sipping at his tea. No, indeed, Bilbo agreed, helping himself to another scone. Is the river running very dangerous in late spring? We are nearly in summer now. There cannot be much melting snow for the mountains.
Floods come with the rain in any season. Indeed, I have heard tell that a summer storm on the Sea of Rune can make that river deadly all along its courses, though the people upon it will be much too far away to see the lightning or hear the thunder that heralds their doom.
Well, that's a cheery thought at breakfast time, Bilbo added, taking a conciliatory bite of his own scone. Thorin said,
The cheery thought is that they will arrive in at this side of the Long Lake by nightfall. Nearly 2,000 of my people return home after their long and weary exile in the Ered Luin. I expect my sister and a few of the most eager will not rest patiently there, though they have been very responsible on the road thus far. Still, though she does not write so, she will likely press on to Dale tomorrow.
Can I ride out with you to meet her, or is it a family affair? I should not like to intrude. Looking curiously at Bilbo, Thorin tilted his head to one side.
I did not say I would ride out to meet her.
You have spent breakfast every day for the last 2 weeks recounting every step of your sister's progress to me. Do you honestly intend to wait a full 3 days more for her to present herself in your throne room like a supplicant? Chuckling, Thorin turned back to his bacon.
That would be more of my stuffy dwarven nonsense, I take it.
That would be denying yourself a simple pleasure for no sensible reason.
Much like failing to share breakfast with your good self.
Exactly like that, I should say.
We ride out tomorrow morning, just the company.
Only Thorn Ogajill could manage to look that pleased with himself while putting a whole fried egg into his mouth.
I convinced Gloin and Bumba to wait and make a spectacle of it. They both wanted to leave days ago to meet their families.
Laughing, Bilbo cried, And you did not think to mention it in all this time!
I planned to ask you to join us tomorrow at breakfast.
So that I should have no notice at all? That seems strange to Bilbo. After all, he had no friends among the travelers. Why should plans for their arrival be kept a secret from him?
So that you would not overthink what I now ask of you.
Thorin took a deep drink from his teacup and did not look at Bilbo.
The rest of us will go armed and armored in our best. Naturally, you must outfit yourself as you feel comfortable doing, but I pray you would consider all that is in your possession, and only that it is in your possession. Any meaning or symbolism that could be attached to such items has long been washed away by blood and battle. I would never insist. I do not insist. I would not even mention the item. It is only that I promised Balin I would explain as much to you in case you did not understand.
Thorin! I have never in my life heard you babble so. Of course I will wear my mithril shirt to meet your sister, if you wish it. Thorin's blue eyes snapped up to meet Bilbo's. Other than that, the dwarf was perfectly still. He did not seem to even breathe. That is what you are asking me to do, isn't it? Bilbo did not know why it should be so important to Thorin, though he suspected it had something to do with how shabby Bilbo's own wardrobe was when compared with the rest of the company, while his thriving new business had allowed for the purchase of several well-tailored new waistcoats. Bilbo certainly did not go about decked in gold and jewels as the others did.
Yes.
It sounded as though his throat was full of gravel. That is not some hidden dwarvish meaning to me doing so now, Bilbo asked suspiciously. Thorin was behaving in a manner entirely contrary to his character, and the hobbit did not know why.
No, I swear it,
Thorin said, frowning and forcefully stabbing a piece of bacon with his fork. Only that is the best thing I own, and you want me to be presentable when I meet your sister for the first time, Bilbo pressed. He did not at all like being kept in ignorance. The frown upon Thorin's face softened, and his eyes were warm when they met Bilbo's again.
You do look very well in it.
Blushing, it was the hobbit's turn to distract himself by eating a few bites of his own egg. Certainly Thorin had not said he found Bilbo handsome or anything silly, only that Bilbo looked most presentable in his eyes when decked out in valuable metals, which was very dwarvish and definitely not intended to make a hobbit's heart beat faster. It did, though. Riding out in state was an experience, largely because Bilbo thought there would be ponies, which he was nearly accustomed to after the long road to Erebor. He had not been expecting to be seated on a giant silver war goat with curling golden horns longer than his own arms. Fortunately, his steed seemed to know what it was doing and stayed with the rest of the little flock, following close behind Thorin's own great black buck. Balin nudged up beside Bilbo on a creature with wool as white and fluffy as the elderly dwarf's own beard.
I'm sorry, Bilbo. I forgot you'd never ridden a goat before. It's just the same as a pony, really, and Pebble is a sweet nanny.
Jerking up and down with the bouncing canter of the daring creature, Bilbo huffed. Yes, it is rather like my first time on a pony. Feely laughed. Keep your knees loose, he advised. Move with her, or she'll get annoyed and throw you to the ground. Feely's beast had a light golden coat that matched his princely features very well. All of this so that we should look a very impressive war party, Bilbo griped, trying to lever his body up and down in time with the creature. But if we do encounter any trouble, I hope one of you will help me off her back, otherwise I shall surely fall off and crack my head open. Your head will be fine, Feely laughed. Then he shared a sly look with his brother, whose goat was a chestnut brown that matched the dark color of the younger prince's chainmail very well. But I will agree that you look quite the warrior in your armor. Usually, Bilbo was quite capable of subtlety, but bouncing up and down with every prancing step of the giant goat had put him in a bad move. Is there some meaning to my wearing it? Thorin promised there wasn't, but he was very strange about it.
There is not,
Balin said with unexpected force.
The mail has been touched by your blood and the blood of your enemies. It is yours to wear whenever you want.
Which Bilbo took to mean that there was some strange point of dwarvish etiquette that he was missing. Pebble chose that moment to give his hindquarters a truly forceful jolt, completely out of the rhythm they'd agreed upon, and Bilbo nearly slipped from the saddle. A plague on all dwarves and their secrets, he cried. If you are my friends, then speak plainly, or I shall throw the confounded shirt by the side of the road and have done with it. I'm sorry, Feely said, looking truly contrite. The armor is your own, and I know it better than most. Please, Bilbo, I was only teasing. Forgive him, Keely said, pushing his own mount between Feely and Bilbo so that the hobbit could feel its shaggy wool against his leg. We tease because we still hope. Well, the prince looked at his uncle's back. Obviously, Thorin must have heard some other talk, but his back was as straight as a pike, and his face turned firmly toward the road before them. With Gloin on his left and Dwalin on his right, he would have had excuse enough to turn a little and look back at his ridiculous following, but he did not. Probably he did not care about their antics at all. We tease because we know we surely should have to help you down from Pebble's back if there were any fighting to be done, Feely said, smiling apologetically from behind his brother. Bilbo forgave them at once. It was impossible to stay angry with the good-natured lads, and the hobbit was glad enough to drop the subject. Clearly, it had something to do with the days of Thorin's madness and Bilbo's betrayal. As such, he could not blame them all for walking on eggshells. So long as you promise to do it, he grumbled, we shall keep your tender head intact. Grinning, Keely reached over and grabbed Bilbo by the shoulders, off-balancing his awkward riding even more than the goat's own gait did. The dwarf prince pressed their heads together in a happy nuzzle, and no matter how he struggled, the hobbit could not squirm away until Keely released him. When the lad did let go, Bilbo nearly fell off in the other direction, but Balin was there with a firm hand to right him.
Leave Bilbo alone while he's riding,
the old dwarf scolded. Then he kindly showed Bilbo the trick to properly holding his reins, which were a little different than the sort one might use for a pony. Fortunately, the distance from the gates of Erebor to Dale was but a few miles. The company arrived within the hour to great fanfares of ringing bells. Bard himself met them. This, of course, meant that Thorin had to get off his mount to be polite, for he could not remain astride while Bard bowed before him without looking like a lord greeting his vassal. That meant Bilbo was allowed to get down as well and stretch his legs, though the others laughed at him for doing it. At least Bard was sympathetic to the hobbit's complaints and offered him a pony for their further journey. Reluctantly, Bilbo declined the offer. He would not spoil the picture Thorin wanted to paint for his sister for his own comfort.
Change mounts if you care to,
Thorin practically ordered, but Bilbo obstinately clambered back into Pebble's saddle. Aside from the question of a pony, Bard was able to tender the valuable intelligence that Lady Dis had in fact set out from the dwarven camp on the near edge of the long lake before dawn that morning. She was accompanied by a small party, both walking and riding. Apparently, she was hoping to surprise her brother with an early arrival. Exchanging grins, the company hurried back along their road. It seemed the little distance to Dale was enough time for Bilbo to get accustomed to the bouncing walk of his goat, because the company decided to try a gallop. Eating up miles of the smooth, recently paved road leading out of Dale was more important than Bilbo's tortured band. Painful or not, it was exciting to go so fast. Bilbo doubted that even the famous horses of Rohan could match the dwarven war goats. Around him, the landscape looked like a blur of rock, earth, and the new green plants gently reclaiming the land now that the evil of the dragon did not force it barren. Happily to Bilbo's mind, the goats could not keep the pace for more than an hour or so before needing a rest. Of course, there was no actual stopping, only walking along next to the goats for a few minutes, but even that was fine by Bilbo. Just having the chance to stretch his cramped legs and ease his aching back was a gift that could not last. Soon enough, they were back astride, once more trotting gently along the path. As the sun reached its zenith, Bilbo realized they were nearly halfway to the long lake. Somehow, as if the mere knowledge called them forth, at that moment he spotted the group of dwarves approaching around a distant bend in the road. "I see them!" he cried in excitement. Keely squinted. "I see them too." The prince hopped his goat into a gallop, and the rest of the company did the same. Although he struggled to keep up, Bilbo did not regret his exclamation. Out in front of the group of walking dwarves, there was a single runner, outracing even the few ponies on their side. They looked small, almost hobbit-sized, and their hair flamed as red as dragon fire in the noon sun. Bilbo began to suspect the child's name when he heard a cry of, "Adon! When Gloin leapt from the back of his goat, rolling on the ground, bouncing to his feet, and sprinting to meet the lad, lifting him into the air joyfully. There could be no doubt of the boy's identity. "Gamble! Inodai!" Spinning the boy around and around, Gloin began to laugh and cry at the same time, squeezing the boy and pressing their heads together. Within seconds, Bumber was on the ground being tackled by his own children. Biffer and Bofer joined their brother, embracing their nieces and nephews with exuberance, gleeful hugs, and little presents for each of them, distracting the children so that Bumber could greet his wife. When Bilbo turned from that scene, he saw that Nori's wife had somehow found her way up onto the back of his steed and taken hold of his braided beard to kiss him senseless. Bilbo was a little shocked to notice that she was removing quite a bit of his friend's clothing. Then he was surprised to see that one of her legs was actually made of finely crafted steel, not simply clad in a heavy boot of the sort dwarves often wore. Immediately, he scolded himself to mind his own business. They were only removing a few clothes after all, and he'd learned long ago not to attribute hobbit sensibilities to dwarfs. However, he was not the only one to think the display too much of an exhibition. Dory plucked the dwarf down from her husband's arms, greeted her happily as his sister-in-law, and asked her to button her dress back up. The line of Durin managed a little more dignity. Thorin edged his great black billy goat forward a few more steps, and Fili and Kili pranced up to flank him on either side. Together they approached the most elegant dwarf dame Bilbo had ever seen. Her beard was full and black as midnight, braided in dozens of long loose strands that were bound together with silver ribbons and beads, as was the thick hair of her head. Dressed in a deep blue that complemented eyes as sky-bright as her brother's, she was seated nobly atop a white pony. "Hail, Thorin," she said gravely, "King under the mountain."
"Welcome home, Namad,"
he said just as solemnly. Fili and Kili slipped from their mounts in tandem and walked forward, bowing together, as though they had practiced the move 1,000 times. "Welcome, mother," Fili said.
"We've reclaimed the mountain for you,"
Kili added cheekily.
"Ah." Dis slipped from the back of her pony, instantly rushing forward to grab both of her sons at once. "My boys, Mizzimeath, well done, both of you. I am so proud, so very proud, there are no words." She pulled them forward, crushing their heads together, as though she wanted to push her feelings into their minds so that they might understand. When Thorin dismounted, she finally released the princess, stepping forward to slam her head hard against her brother's. It was a gesture he met with equal force, and Bilbo was almost as shocked as he had been seeing Dwalin and Balin do the same thing in Bag End so very long ago. Still, it warmed his heart to see so many families reuniting. Even those like Balin and Dwalin, who did not have anyone special to meet, were happily greeting the princess's guards, apparently old friends. The hobbit himself was very happy to meet Gawain's family, of whom he had heard many stories, and Bumber's children, who he knew by name, and Nori's wife, who Dory was physically restraining from climbing back into her husband's lap.
Come, Bilbo.
Thorin called, beckoning him to join the little knot of royalty at the center of everything.
I would introduce you to my sister. Sister, this is Bilbo Baggins, the hobbit I have mentioned in my letters.
Stepping forward smartly, Bilbo bowed low before Lady Dis. It is my very great honor to meet you, Princess of the House of Durin. He kept his face turned carefully toward the tops of his own feet until she spoke, which was after a long pause. You are Bilbo? She stepped closer to him. At once he was painfully aware that mithril armor or no, he did not look very much like someone able to do any of the things Thorin might have found worthy of including in a letter. Incredible pain blossomed in his skull. For a bizarre second, Bilbo saw blood in the center of the princess's forehead and was very confused. But then the world went mercifully black.